Guy Shafir and I'm WhiteOps CTO, a premier Google Cloud partner, and welcome to the first installment of Google Cloud News. With COVID-19 ruining our plans for a favorite convention in San Francisco, Google has decided to shift to a more online paradigm to share its news and innovation with you. Now we at WhiteOps value your time and have decided to summarize the last few weeks of Google On Air to give you a brief understanding of what's new with Google Cloud. I think that we can all agree that up until now the most exciting news on Google On Air has been BigQuery Omni. To understand what BigQuery Omni is, we first need to understand what Anthos is. So let's dive a second into that. Now, you might be running your workloads on a cloud different from Google Cloud or on-premise due to regulations or some other considerations. But you want to run Kubernetes, and you know that the best way to run Kubernetes is with GKE, with Kubernetes basically being a Google product, even though it's open sourced. But you're saying, I can't run my workload on GKE, all my other workloads are on my other cloud provider or on-premise. Well, Google says, don't worry about it, I got you covered. And with Anthos, you can basically run GKE on-premise or any cloud provider. Now, Anthos revolutionized our understanding of how to run Kubernetes, not only on GKE, but in other cloud providers and maybe on-prem. And Google has decided to take that one step forward and allow you to run BigQuery on top of Anthos. Now, what does that mean? What is BigQuery? BigQuery is an enterprise-grade data warehouse developed in-house by Google and is used in products like Gmail, Google Search, YouTube, and any other product you might have data warehousing and big data in. Now, BigQuery has been with us for many years, running on top of Google Cloud and helping our customers understand their data better and query that data in rates that were considered impossible before. Now, to understand what BigQuery Omni is, we need to break down BigQuery into its three main components. The first component being Borg, Google's computational clustering management system. The second being Colossus, Google's storage management system, responsible of things like the Colossus file system, replication across different zones and different data centers. And the third being Dremel, the heart behind BigQuery, and it is basically the querying engine that's responsible for things like query rewrite, mixing the data, and so on and so forth. So what Google has decided to do is to take Dremel and export it out. Alright, you want to run Dremel in a different place? Sure, you got your data stored in a different cloud provider, don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and sit in that different cloud provider so you can query your data faster, and when you are closer to your data and you don't have any egress charge and stuff like that. No. Now, can we expect the same kind of performance we get when we run BigQuery on GCP? Well, of course not. BigQuery has been optimized for many years to run on Google infrastructure. And basically what Google is doing is replacing Borg with components running on Anthos, but they're running on infrastructure different from Google Cloud, and replacing Colossus with the data source that you might have. It might be S3 or any other database you might want to query. That's pretty cool, but what does that actually give me? Well, it gives you the ability to run BigQuery anywhere you want. It might be on-premise, it might be on Azure or AWS or any other cloud provider. And it gives you the ability to query your data closest to your data is and avoid things like egress charges or high latency wherever your data is. And when you don't have the ability to move data closest or closer to Google Cloud, that's the best option you're going to get to query petabytes of data in a matter of seconds. Now, the next most exciting thing that was announced was, drumrolls, the ability to redirect HTTP to HTTPS traffic with Google Load Balancer. Now, you're asking, okay, that's neat, but what is Google Load Balancer? Well, Google Load Balancer is a revolutionary product that allows you to leverage Google Cloud's internal network, and that's a network that's spread across the whole globe with fiber channels, and serve the data closest to your customers and have endpoints anywhere you want with a single floating IP. Now, this feature has been long expected, and it gives us the ability to automatically secure all the traffic that goes through Google's load balancers. Now, with that update, we got some other cool things bundled into Google Load Balancer. We now have the ability to redirect to 301, 302 codes, and so on and so forth, as well as the ability to serve cloud functions from Google Load Balancer. Now, what are cloud functions? Cloud functions are serverless components that take your code and run it. Alright? That's basically it. You take your code, you run it. But what can I use it for? You can use it for all kinds of triggers, CI/CD processes, testing, and so on and so forth. And with cloud functions being entirely serverless, you don't need to worry about maintenance for your servers. You don't need to worry about compatibility of your code to the operating system. You just need to write your code, push your code, and that's it. Now, with Google Load Balancer, cloud functions have come much closer to our end customers spread around the world. With the update to the Google Load Balancer, leveraging Google's network of fiber channels that are spread across the globe, Google has also announced that it's going to connect UK, US, and Spain with a brand new subsea cable that's going to provide 340 terabytes per second of data bandwidth for things like Google Search, Gmail, and Google Cloud. Now, you're already using GLB to serve your websites or your web services, but you want to protect those. Google has announced 3 new features to its WAF solution called Cloud Armor. Now, first being Cloud Armor Managed Protection Plus. This is a set of products and rules that help you protect your websites with a very predictable monthly fee. Second, being Google curated IP lists. Let's say you're running on a variety of projects or on a variety of Google Cloud organizations, but you want your IP lists for your firewall, for your deny, for your allow to be spread across all those projects and across your organizations. Now, you can do that easily with Google's curated IP list. Now, last but not least, Google have updated its WAF rule set to now include things like remote file inclusion, local file inclusion, and remote code execution. Next, pun intended, Google has announced confidential VMs. In confidential VMs, all the data on the VM is always encrypted except for the CPU. Now you're saying, all right, data is usually encrypted on GCP, but you're right, it's encrypted on disk. But what happens in memory? What happens in transaction between the memory and the CPU, and so on and so forth? There, the data is indeed encrypted. Now, Google is using AMD EPYC CPUs and AMD's revolutionary technology to decrypt the data already on the AMD CPU. Now, obviously, this gives you better confidentiality even inside your own VM, but it also gives you the ability to share and collaborate with different parties when working on things like confidential research without sharing too much information and without them being able to read what you are doing and for you to read what they are doing. Last but not least, Google has added 11 new security features to G Suite. Now, with COVID-19 running around wreaking havoc, we have shifted to a more video conferencing type of work, working from home or working in capsules from work. And we rely on technology to communicate much more than before. Google has decided to tackle that also from a security perspective, allowing new features for G Suite admins and video conferencing admins to really control who can get into a call, how they can get into a call, what can they do, and so on and so forth.